understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast. I'm your host, Brian, here with Andre and Randy. How are you guys?
Doing great. And yourself?
Doing well?
Good there. You got a sweater on.
Oh, dude, don't even. I do have a sweater on. It's cold. I actually turned the heat on today in the office because it was 50-something degrees when I walked in.
Wow.
So it was 40 outside.
Wow.
It's 42. So it's quite cold, quite quick. So guys, in this episode, we're going to unpack a series of alarming incidents that highlight the vulnerabilities that we live with today in our digital world. We're going to talk about this recent hack on the Internet Archives and what that means, what information was jeopardized there, and why that's important. And a new trend where hackers are using phone calls to deploy malware. And it's clear that cyber threats are becoming more sophisticated with the use of things like AI and ChatGPT. So we're going to dive into how threat actors are leveraging these tools to create malware and raising serious concerns about the future of cybersecurity. Plus, we're going to cover a bunch of ransomware attacks on companies like Axis Healthcare Systems or Axis Health Systems, Casio, the watchmaker or electronics maker back in the day. They've also suffered a ransomware attack. And we're going to also dive into what happened at Fulton County, a follow-up to their ransomware attack, because we found some interesting information there. And if we have time towards the end, we will discuss this report from Microsoft. It's their Digital Defense Report for 2024, shedding light on current cybersecurity trends, and we'll bring some of those highlights from that report to you. Before we get into it, Andre has a commercial.
Yes, so we don't have any sponsors or anything like that. All we ask is that you share, like, and subscribe to our show. And especially if you hear something interesting, maybe you want to just share it and say, hey, listen to minute number XYZ, because they're talking about some good points. So we thank you for listening. And again, we have no sponsors.
No sponsors is right, because we don't annoy you with ads and sponsorships. Although we have one guy who's interested, a consultant, who's interested in sponsoring the show. So we might have to do commercials for him anyway. So let's talk about it, guys. The Internet Archive got hacked, and it's kind of a big deal. There's a lot of different things that can happen with this. That on the surface, it's like, so what? The internet, the Wayback Machine got hacked. So what? So let's talk about what could a threat actor do with the Wayback Machine? Like, why is that critical? Because a lot of people are saying, this is a crucial piece of the internet. If you don't know what the Internet Archive is or the Wayback Machine, it's essentially a digital library that preserves billions of web pages and historical documents that are on the internet. So if you've had, we've had a website here at Exact IT since 2004. So if you go on this website, you can basically see points in time of what our website looked like over 2 decades. And all of that information is retained by this company for almost, I guess, infinitely, right? You can go back to when the domain was registered, and it'll basically tell you whether the site was active or live or, had one of those park pages or anything of that sort. And when it detects changes to the website, you actually see a little highlight in the timeline. It's like, hey, the website changed here. So you can kind of go and see what those changes were. It's an interesting piece of technology that's been around for a long time. And I think it's used for a lot of different things. I know from cybersecurity and a hacking standpoint, it's that online intelligence that's out there, that public intelligence that people use to target or figure out who their target is, or things that they might be able to do to a certain company or website. There's a lot of information. Like think about this is one thing I think about with the Internet Archive machine, right? There was a point in time where we didn't think about all this stuff from a cybersecurity standpoint, and a lot of people put a lot of things out on the internet that they may have taken down since that time, right? Whether it be for compliance reasons or because it's just maybe too much information to be putting on the internet. Those are the things that like I look at as like the bad part of, and what this tool is used for from a nefarious standpoint. But it's also used for good. It's also used for legitimate research purposes and things like that. But what's the risk here, guys? Like, what's the risk of hackers taking control of this website?
I think a couple of other uses will help us answer that question.
Right.
Because it's also used as a documentation tool. So, because it actually, you can tell it to take a snapshot of any website now. So if your company has a dispute because, some other company says on their website, free oranges if you buy a car or whatever, you can literally take that. I don't know where that example came from. You can literally take that URL and then take a snapshot and add it. Also, if, you can also save like tweets and stuff like that. So if somebody on X posts a tweet that's controversial, people can go and save it. In fact, a lot of your, if not most of your large famous people in the world, their tweets get snapshotted into Internet Archive right away. So there's I think going towards like, well, what could be the, like the negative repercussions of this hack? I mean, so far it sounds like they weren't into that actual database, but I've often thought when I was adding stuff, like a criminal might want access to that. I don't remember which show it was. I think it was Sons of Anarchy, where like there was some like recording or something that incriminated them. So they like ran into the police department and then like shot this giant magnet or something through the wall to like blow out the recording. Like I could see criminals wanting access to, in cases where people were incriminated, where they would want access to this, where they could wipe out stuff that was evidence. That would be one of the reasons. Plus, it also sounds like it's super popular. 31 million passwords were stolen. So there's another huge reason right there to get in there.
Andre, your thoughts on this one?
Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
Works better when it's not muted. Sorry about that. I said that would be the main reason why is they have 31 million user records with email addresses, usernames, and hash passwords. I would want to say, why is Wayback even keeping that? Is there a way they can just exit out or delete it or whatever the case is? But nevertheless, also too, we're finding out that this could be some type of political motivation, being who these bad guys are. So they may just want to try to rewrite history and try to just change something to make it seem different. Because I guess this is kind of like our version of a Encyclopedia Britannica, where if we wanted to see what someone was saying or what, like you said, your website was 10 years ago, to see maybe who's doing CMMC 5 years ago, whatever the case is, we can see how long they've been doing things like that.
Yeah, the internet technology is nothing, and a lot of these scams and hacks are predicated on the fact that people become so used to using something, and the trust level goes way up with something like the Internet Archive machine or Wikipedia. If somebody gets control of those and controls the flow of the information, they could really skew people's views, opinions, things like that of what's going on out there in the world. So those are the things that, are concerns when something like this gets taken over. Plus, think about it. when you go on the Internet Archive, right, you see web pages, right? And those web pages have links that might still be active. Well, you could take like IBM's website and change a link to a malware page that you control.
Yep.
Right. And they click on that link thinking, where does this go? And it doesn't go to another page on the Internet Archive. It goes to, some server that's hosted by a cyber criminal that now has, something malicious embedded in it that is now on your computer. So the good news is that it's back up, and it seems like they've done enough digging to figure out if things like this have occurred, and it appears that they feel like they have things back up and running to a point where there isn't any malicious code embedded or anything malicious going on in their system anymore. We'll find out, but they are back up and running at this point, and the Internet Archives are available and back up again. So it's good that they got back up, because I know a lot of people use the service, but this is what you have to be careful of when you rely and start to put your trust in these services, because I think the same thing, like I said, with Wikipedia could happen, and that could be really bad, because I think a lot more people use Wikipedia than the Internet Archive machine.
Yeah, I'll be curious to know if like OpenAI, ChatGPT uses Wayback Machine for information as well. That could then kind of filter in bad queries. And then last thing is, I did check. They didn't say the exact, but they did say millions of users a day use Wayback Machine.
Yeah, not surprised. And the chat. I'd be willing to bet big bucks that they've already used the Wayback Machine to train ChatGPT, just because it's an archive of everything that's been out there. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they told it to stay away so they wouldn't get bad information. But all the chats, all the GPTs, they all make up stuff. So I don't know what a little bit of bad information is going to do. Anyway.
So we got a couple comments, questions that have come in. We'll hit those in a little bit, but I want to move on to this article on the phone call-based malware attacks, guys. So what I'm reading here is a new attack method that combines traditional phishing with voice communication. This is known as telephone-oriented attack delivery, or TOAD, or callback phishing, and it leverages social engineering techniques. So, Randy, do you know anything about this?
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain how this would play out if somebody got a call like this to their phone?
Yeah, for sure. So I was actually surprised when I read this article that it hasn't already been happening, because this is always one of our biggest fears over the last 18 months. We had 3 different C-level people that we know that got the email. So the email comes out, it's a phishing email, typically from a legitimate PayPal account, a legitimate QuickBooks account, or something like that. But basically, one of the ways they'll get you is try to get you to call them. It's what they want to do. And so maybe it says, thank you for your order of McAfee or whatever. And where this has happened a lot over the last 5 years is specifically with scammers do that specific thing. And then they have this whole thing that they do to try to get you to give them money. Where they're going here, taking it to the next level, which, like I said, I was extremely surprised that this is a new thing, where taking it to the next level, instead of these same 2-bit scammers that are doing the same thing, we have higher level criminals that are now pushing malware to your site, to your computer once they make the connection to your computer. So I'm not sure if they're doing the exact same spiel. Oh yeah, let us get that, McAfee invoice refunded or whatever. Hey, we're going to need to log in. They've been always doing that. But now supposedly pushing malware to the computer to get access. So that's basically a lot of the gist of what's going on.
Well, this is very similar to how the MGM hack happened last year. where you had an employee give out, information to someone they thought was IT support. So maybe they're seeing that, they made some good money there, and this would be an opportunity to do it again.
Yeah, and I mentioned we saw 3 C-level people do this, where they got the email from a legitimate PayPal account. It wasn't their charge, and so they called basically a number, and then we had application control, process control in place. So when the hackers tried to remote into their machines, they couldn't do it. So it's basically along those lines. There's a YouTube channel, Scammer Payback, where he just focuses on just the ones trying to rip off individuals. But it is very eye-opening. What's that?
Hello?
Yes.
What'd you say?
That's right. But it is very eye-opening. My wife and I love to watch this show. It's very entertaining and also eye-opening at the same time. So
Some of those are long, dude.
Yep.
So it's pretty amazing. Some of the other stuff that I saw statistics-wise is there's about 10 million of these attacks monthly happening to businesses and people. It happens to about 67% of businesses versus individuals, which is pretty interesting to me. This Conti has started adopting some of these tactics to get initial access to victims' networks. So that's another thing, is that these ransomware groups are kind of looking at this going, well, if they can get in and try to steal money out of their bank account or try to steal, get them to buy gift cards, we could probably get in and deploy ransomware, right?
Yep.
The same way, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of keys that they've learned, like using professional sounding callers. They know that works better than having people that don't sound professional. So all these things are changing and adopting, right? They're learning from look, it took 20 years to get rid of the Nigerian prince emails, right? To finally not see those anymore. And now they've evolved from the Nigerian prince emails to what we see today, which are very effective phishing emails. And this is going in the same route, right? You're not going to have people with crackly phone lines and, hard to understand people calling you. You're going to have people calling you who sound just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to trust them, and your guard's going to be down because it doesn't sound like a typical call center to you.
Right.
They're hiring multilingual call center operators to work in these call centers because they don't know who's going to pick up and what language they're going to speak. So people being able to speak multiple languages only increases the chances of their scams working. And a lot of these are adopting their social engineering techniques and becoming more advanced with what they do and how they do it. So what does this mean? It means that businesses need to prepare. They need to train their staff for these evolving tactics. Everything I just laid out to you should be part of your security and awareness training, letting your employees know that this is what a phone call looks like today. This is what you should be on the lookout for. And if you receive one, this is what you should do. These guys are really good now at using what's known as direct pressure tactics to get people to do certain things. And these direct pressure tactics usually involve like an emergency type thing, like, hey, I'm calling from IT or I'm calling from HR. And if you don't do this, X or Y or Z is going to happen. And it just completely, blows out all rational thinking of the person who received the phone call. And then they just start kind of doing things. And this is what we see happen out there in the real world. That's why I'm warning you, because you're like, wow, how did that person not realize that? Well, this is what happens when a call comes in. It happens quickly, and before you know it, you let somebody in your network.
Well, and I think that's a really good point there is, in poker, if you lose a big hand that you should have won and it upsets you, we call that being on tilt, and what they'll try to do in these calls is they want to do something to get you on tilt, because if you're on tilt, then you're more likely to say yes. The traditional scamming call, they process the refund, and they have you enter in the refund amount. And while you're typing in 500, they type in 2 extra zeros, and it becomes 50,000. And then the scammer starts talking about how he over refunded you. He's going to lose his job. He's got a new baby at home. Can you please help me get my money back or whatever? You know, and who doesn't want to help someone out like that, right? So you got to be really careful. One, never call back. So if they call and they say that it's Best Buy and you think you have a thing at Best Buy, well, don't, or email you, don't take that. If you think it's real, go to actualbestbuy.com. You know, you initiate what you do. Don't respond back to the email. Don't call from the email. Same if you get one from your insurance company, your phone company, because all that stuff's out on the dark web now, and they can craft very personal emails. So like the other day, I got one from my insurance company. They called me, and then they wanted me to verify who I was. And I'm like, you called me. You already know who I am. I'm not going to give you out that information. And the lady was very frustrated with me, but come on, why would I give that information out? So anyway, don't get me started.
Andre, good?
Just 2 things. You mentioned the Nigerian prince. Now the Nigerian prince has matured to the Nigerian king.
There you go.
All right.
Nice. There you go. All right, so let's get into this ChatGPT development, which is where essentially OpenAI has said, yep, we know that there's people out there trying to use ChatGPT to create malware, right? And think about it, guys. Like, think about it, right? If something else can create malware and cause problems for companies, we're in a lot of trouble, because I've been on this channel for 1.5 years saying businesses aren't doing enough.
Right.
Right. But the good thing is, the only saving grace that businesses have is the fact that you need to have some skills to be able to do this, right? You can't just create malware, read a book or 2 and create malware. Like, you know, people can read a book on AI and be an AI expert. Well, you're not going to read a book on Java or any programming language and be able to create malware immediately. It's going to take years and years for you to build the skills and develop the craft to build something like malware. It's scary to think that people can use a tool like ChatGPT to start creating this stuff. And if it actually is effective and works, companies are in a lot of trouble. So let's get into it. OpenAI has officially confirmed that threat actors are using ChatGPT for malicious purposes. There's over 20 cases of malware-related abuse that were documented in 2024 alone. I'm not even sure what that even means. You know, types of malicious activity that they're seeing are debugging and developing malware. So meaning somebody's trying to learn maybe, and they're getting frustrated because their code isn't working or it's not doing what they thought. So let me dump this in a ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT why my code's not working, right? Yep. So it is scary because, look, the way it worked before is you read a book, you read online, you coded, you know, you punched each, you know, character in with your fingers, and you hit run or you hit execute. It ran, and sometimes you got errors and sometimes it worked, right? And you work through that process of writing good code and making sure that your code works. Now you can just dump it into a machine and say, where's my problem, right? And it kind of finds it for you, right? Where, like I've said this before, like when you write program, you could have one character, one colon throwing off your whole program, right? And you got to find it. Right. And now you can have a computer find it for you. So it's going to make things a lot easier for the good guys and the bad guys, unfortunately. But they're also seeing activity around generating content for phishing campaigns, like we talked about earlier, spreading disinformation on social media, and researching vulnerabilities in industrial control systems or operational technology, as we talked about in the green room. So what do you guys think here?
Well, I mean, the downside of this, big downside of this, is I like to use ChatGPT and other large language models to learn, to study things that are going on out there. You can look for trends depending on which one you're on. And so some of the things that are going to raise red flags, like, looking for vulnerabilities, how to overcome vulnerabilities. There's some of those that for the good guys might raise red flags because the bad guys, quote unquote, are actually doing that as well, and you said implications for the bad and for the good guys. That's what I thought about, was some of these are legit uses, for a cybersecurity professional, to be able to look into some of this stuff. I like to let it look at large numbers of emails and bring back, summaries and stuff like that. That's not so much cybersecurity, but anyway, just that's my concern here, is that some of these activities might be legit from legit people, and they need to be able to tell, is this legit actor or not?
And maybe they can do that by having them sign up as, I don't want to say like a developer, but signing up or authenticating their account some way to some, like, hey, I'm with UF Research and you'll see me putting these things, but here's my credentials. I scan my log, scan things and whatever. But I did do a Google search to see what is the percentage of internet traffic that is being used for illegal purposes. And they're estimating about 10%. So 10% of the internet traffic in the world is for illegal stuff. So so just imagine with GPT and those things, it's going to be even more.
A couple of things I'll point out as like silver linings around this, because it is scary, because it does lower the barrier of entry for developing malicious code. Individuals without programming skills can create basic malware. But the good thing is that ChatGPT hasn't had any breakthroughs in its platform to where it can develop sophisticated malware. The only thing it can really do right now is assist in improving existing malware or creating simple scripts, which speeds up things a little bit. But you're not going to be able to go in and be like, create me malware. That's not how this works. OpenAI said they're going to ban accounts associated with these malicious activities, and they're also going to share indicators of compromise with cybersecurity partners, which is good. If somebody's developing something or running something through AI, and they can detect whether that's malicious behavior and they can share that with the community, then we can start looking for those indicators in our own networks and things like that. I just want to mention some legal implications. Number one, if you use AI tools to create things like malware, you could potentially be committing a felony. It is a felony to maintain and possess source code or computer code that is malicious. That is in the United States code. It is in a lot of other countries' laws. So you having this on your computer, on a flash drive, stored in your OpenAI account, could potentially open you up to serious prosecution and a couple years of jail time if they decide to prosecute you for possessing this stuff, which most people who possess this stuff and get caught with it get prosecuted, right, and spend some time in jail. You could probably become a cybersecurity expert after that, because that's kind of what happens. But that's the reality. What else do you guys, any other concerns that you guys see here? No, we're good.
Well, I don't know if it's not necessarily a concern, but I mean, we've been saying since AI came on the scene that it's just a matter of time before the bad guys use it, and they use it to take all the data that's out there on the dark web and collate it. So maybe they can't do that, do it for the purpose of, very targeted phishing emails and such. And maybe they can't do that using ChatGPT. But there's all kinds of large language models that you can just download and run on your computer. So there's other ways they can get around this.
Yeah, you can build your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And this is all being talked about on the dark web and things like that. But good thing is it's not easy right now to build those language models to where they're as robust as what we see with ChatGPT to build them yourself. So we'll keep everyone updated on how this evolves, but AI is helping people write bad stuff to attack your companies. That's the bottom line here. And you need to be prepared that the attacks are going to just increase in frequency if you don't start doing something from a cyber defense standpoint. So let's talk about two companies that got hit, guys. It didn't do such a good job with their cyber defenses. We'll talk about Axis, and then we'll talk about Casio. Some details that I have in front of me about the Axis Health System ransomware attack occurred between July 9th and September 4th. That's a big gap. Detected irregular activity on August 26th and unauthorized gain access to certain computer systems. The Ryside ransomware gang claimed responsibility for the attack. They have ties to the Vice Society ransomware group, and they've been around for a while, at least in the ransomware world, since May of 2023. The ransom demand sits at approximately $1.5 million, and they have a 7-day deadline to pay the ransom. I don't know if that's passed or not yet. Andre might be able to fill us in on there. The primary care portal was taken offline. Patients were advised to call clinics directly for communication. And we have concerns of potential access and acquisition of files on compromised systems, meaning health records and other personal information. We don't know what data has been accessed as of yet. And that's kind of where it's at. Axis is a private nonprofit-based company from Durango, Colorado that provides primary behavioral and oral health, which operates 13 facilities across the Southwest and Western Colorado. Thoughts on this, guys?
According to one source, it says the patient portal remains offline, so clients aren't able to log in. But they're keeping tight-lipped, and they're saying that if you were part of this breach, that they will send you a notice.
Yeah, and it looks like the ransomware deadline is tomorrow, which is probably GMT or Eastern European time, which means we probably just have a few hours left.
So interesting. Another healthcare sector company attack. That's number 69 on the year. We've had over 7 million records impacted this year as a result of these attacks. And the average ransom demand on these healthcare companies is about $813,000. So just about $1 million. So anything you want to talk about from a preventative measure, or what, this, I guess overall for me, it's just, we need to do better from a robust cybersecurity standpoint in the healthcare industry. That means making sure your systems are up to date, making sure you're doing vulnerability scanning, employee training, and you have a good incident response plan in place. And actually, that brings up a good segue to a question that we got from a fan, Luke. And he says, he asked, do you guys think there's a need to help companies prepare for when a ransomware attack happens? Like specific services focusing, showing business leaders how to access Tor, dark web, get crypto, etc. So it's an interesting question, because that's not necessarily, and I'm going to turn it off so we bring Andre back. It's an interesting question, guys, because I don't think of response that way, right? This is kind of like, I guess he's suggesting showing leaders how to see where your data, like see the dark web leak site of the ransomware group that may have gotten you, that is now publishing information about your company, and then how to pay the ransom, how to get crypto, kind of like a do-it-yourself, pay the ransomware negotiating kind of thing, right? Like how to, you got hit with ransomware. So a couple of things would have to be true. You don't have insurance, because if you have insurance, the insurance company is going to handle all this for you. So you don't have insurance, cyber insurance, and you want to kind of try to go about this on your own, and you don't have a good way of restoring from backups or anything like that. So those two things would have to be true for you to be in a scenario like this. I guess my approach is to never get you to this place, to make sure that we have backups and we can recover you without needing to deal with things like dark web and crypto, and also having preventative measures in place so they can't steal data and threaten to release it, right? Because if they get that, you're still playing this game too. Thoughts here, guys, on this question? It's an interesting question. Do you think that should be part of what business owners and leaders should be focusing on as part of response, or should it be how I laid it out?
Yeah, I don't know if business owners will care about this at the moment. They only care after it happens. Dark web, and what is the dark web? And they're getting like a quick update on what that means. But what I think to help solve this issue as much as possible is similar to how the federal government, if you're a Department of Education and if you want federal funds, you have to follow this guideline, or you have to make sure this book is, whatever the case is. It's like if you're getting money from the federal government and you're this healthcare, giving mental health help issues, you should then report to the government to say, I'm certifying that I have these 20, 30 items that you require, be it training, zero trust, whatever the case is. And I think that would really, really help. I know it's not answering the question, but I think that would be a better way of addressing the top CEOs to then, or boards to then fix the situation. One more thing. Remember, this is also mental health care, right? So we could see that if this 1.6 million isn't paid, they're now going to go after the clients, the patients, and say, we have your information. We know you have these issues. And if you want the world to know, then if you don't want the world to know, you need to pay us up, because, your hospital clearly doesn't.
Yeah, that would be interesting. We've not seen much of that, but like individual ransomware, like, hey, we've got your data. Do you want us to release it? Well, I was going to say something kind of grim here. When they go through trying to get people to evacuate for hurricanes, I've seen this in Texas. I know Andre's seen this. If you say, no, we're good, they hand you a big old fat magic marker and they tell you to write your name and your social security number on your forearm, because they say, when we haul you out dead, we're going to have to identify you. So I don't know if this is a good business model, but you could use it from like a marketing standpoint. Hey, if you don't reach out and get proper cybersecurity, you're going to have to be fishing, for info out on the dark web. You're going to have to be like buying Bitcoins and sending them to criminals. And, it's going to involve you in all kinds of dirty, gross stuff that you'd probably rather avoid. Or, maybe, hey, this is what it would look like. Here's how we can avoid that part of it. And that's just being prepared and not having to deal with them. So
in other words, the FBI would just turn the other way and say, not our problem. You should have done a better job in protecting yourselves.
Yes.
Because all of these articles, especially the bigger ones, we always see them running. Oh yeah, we contacted the FBI, and not to say they're even fully helping them. You could, anybody can contact the FBI, but that would be a good way too, because just like with Microsoft, if you get, your 365 account gets compromised, good luck with trying to reach them to, get things resolved. Exactly. You're really on your own. You can open a ticket with them, sure, but
Yeah, there's going to be no urgency behind that.
Yeah.
So real quick, do you got to go?
I actually like Luke's comment there. If we want to talk about that real quick, the
last
second
one?
part. Yeah, about the well-being service focus on.
Yeah. So just real quick on this, and then going back to kind of what Luke brought up, do you guys feel like the cyber insurance is prevalent enough in businesses to where this, like, that's the thing? And then maybe Luke, I think you are closely related to something that happened out in London, if my memory serves me correct. So I don't know if your experience is kind of leading you down this path or not, but I would imagine that a lot of these companies have cyber insurance. Like, a lot of companies we deal with have cyber insurance. I mean, some don't, but most do, because they're like, look, if I'm not going to do cybersecurity like I'm supposed to, at least I'm going to get insurance, right? So if something bad happens, I have some coverage. I think that's a thought process. How prevalent do you think that is? Because I kind of lean towards like 80 to 90% of businesses have cyber insurance. Are you guys on board with that or no?
I don't know if it's that high.
In our contract, we require it, but I think most of our, especially on our side, like it's a $5,000 to $8,000 expense a year, so they could afford it. But I'm sure once you start getting 400 employees, then that may be a different conversation. But if you have that much, then you definitely have to budget it.
I mean, I just feel like a lot of this will be taken care of by the insurance companies. Like there's no real market here for what he's suggesting because a lot of those things are going to be taken care of by the insurance companies. I don't know if we're wrong there, Luke. We might be wrong, and maybe people just don't know, and it's just that prevalent. Time will tell. But I just feel like a lot of companies have cybersecurity insurance as a backstop, which covers a lot of this.
Okay. But I was going to say the reason why I don't think this will happen is because we've seen how they treated their employees when there's a ransom. When they say you're on your own, go to unemployment line to get your check because we can't pay you or we don't want to pay you. Mm-hmm. So if they don't, or too bad, we're not going to pay the ransom, even though they have your personal information that you provided to us and expected us to safeguard. So because of that, I don't think employers are going to now start doing, well-being, bringing dogs and stuff to make them feel better. Like I just don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, that mic's messing up. Can't hear him. Can you hear him?
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
So I think what you were saying there is essentially. You don't think the companies are going to provide support to their employees after an event like this, right?
Right. Given that we've seen how they've already treated their employees and not paying ransom.
I agree, and I agree with you, and I think that like that's the last thing on their mind. They got to spend so much money on recovery data and new systems and things like that. There's not going to be they'll be lucky to survive. Their business, let alone adding all these additional services and perks and, support for employees for sure. But it does kind of go into, I'm just going to kind of skip over our topics, talk about our last one and skip over Casio. We'll go right into this discussion quickly about what happened at Fulton County, because I think it's a good tie-in, right? They're saying now that a single employee mistake led to the ransomware attack on Fulton County, Georgia in early 2024. And they basically are saying that they now understand and see why employee cybersecurity awareness training plays a critical role in, cyber defense, right? And they feel like had they been even giving their employees training, this wouldn't have happened. But they weren't giving their employees training, and the company or the county was attacked. So there's where you need to give the support. Everything that was asked by Luke, I think you got to think of that more on the prevention side, right? So nobody feels like a victim or nobody feels like, you want to prevent the problem in the first place. I guess, what we call a blast radius, right, guys? When the blast radius impacts your employees like that, you're not doing a good enough job, right? Because a cyber attack shouldn't impact your operations, your employees, or your customers. And if it does, the blast radius is too far.
Yep.
Randy? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we also saw in that article that the user had admin access. So this was probably a higher level administrator who wants to be able to install anything when he wants without having to open a ticket. And that's probably also the reason it shows he didn't get fired.
Yep.
Appreciate the support there. We have an aspiring cybersecurity student here. Randomly found your stream. Yep. We like when people randomly find our streams. That's because you guys, our fans, are sharing and liking and subscribing. Right. Other people are finding this content just like we've been asking you to do. And as cybersecurity becomes more prevalent and more top of mind for people, we're hoping that this show becomes a key resource for cybersecurity students, business leaders, IT directors, people just trying to figure out this challenge that they have around cybersecurity. So we appreciate the support. We have to go back to our jobs, our real jobs, unfortunately. So can't do this all day. Appreciate you, Randy and Andre. Hope you guys have a good rest of your week. And we'll see everyone next week. Different time next week, right? Monday. Yep. We're coming live Monday. At what time? 2:30 or something? 3 o'clock? Something like that.
Yeah.
Monday afternoon, late afternoon Eastern time. So keep an eye out. We'll try to post something on Facebook ahead of time. Take care, everyone. Thanks for the support. Share the show. See you next week.